so let's get down here a little bit. Woo! All right, okay. Who wants to do boring reviews in a studio? Not me. Let's do a real world test of the GoPro Hero 9 Black. I'm gonna take this camera while I run down this mountain from up here to all the way down there. I'm gonna test out the stabilization. I'm gonna test out the time warp. I'm gonna test out the slow motion. I'm gonna test the time lapse functions over this 5-minute real world test. You'll see what it actually performs like using it in the kind of environment it's designed for. And then at the end, in a couple of minutes, I'll take you into the studio where I will tell you everything I love and hate about this camera compared to the GoPro Hero 8 Black, and whether or not I think you should buy it. Let's go. So our first test is going to be an audio in wind test. This is just the camera completely on its own. There's no shielding on it whatsoever. This is pretty strong wind, 15 to 20 mile an hour winds. The question is not, can you not hear the wind? The question is, can you hear me clearly despite the wind? That's what I want to know. Whoa. Sun's out. Woo. Let's run. Tested the time warp there. That was using the new linear function with horizon leveling. Looks pretty impressive. Definitely gonna be using that again. Right, let's keep going. While we're up here, quick photography test. Okay, so this photograph is going to be shot in RAW, and I will edit it in Lightroom, and I'll show you before and after. Let's do a quick low light test, because GoPros always look amazing outdoors in the sun, but once you hit the shade, it tends to change. So, quick low light test, because there's a cave. Okay, there we go. There's light out that way. Let's see. So the light's still coming in on my face there, so it looks alright. I'll go down there until it's quite dim. There we go. That's very dim. How does that look? And this conducts the low light test. Let's get out of here. Okay, let's test the time warp with real-time audio. This is what I've got it set to at the minute, and I'm going to time warp my way from there all the way to there, and I'll pause whenever I feel like it. We'll just use that new built-in function. This is it set to linear horizon correcting, because I think that's the best. Let's go.
There's a light at the end
Hold
of
up.
I don't see it yet, but I know it's there.
Woo! Look at this view! Well, the ground I was running on there was like that, so let me know how smooth you thought that came out.
It's getting hard to see the light, but if I hold a steady course, I close my eyes and try to feel which way to go and what is real. I wouldn't fall into my doubts anymore. Living on the last hope, turning harder. Living on the last breath, don't you lose the grip. Living on the last hope, turning harder.
Can you hear me? How long did that take to clear? Right, okay. Test over, back to the studio for my conclusion. Oh, I'm just sitting down after eating 3 bags of Watsits for lunch. Terrible idea, don't do it, but let's talk about GoPros and especially the GoPro Hero 9 Black. Well, this is going to be a short video because as you've seen, it excels at everything it was designed to do. That video was great, no problems, I have no problems. You got any problems with it? The audio was a bit noisy, but I've got a fix for that. These little furry things here, stick on, wasn't using that on the day. So if you're worried about the audio, I've got a video on the way that's going to show you how to massively improve that. So yeah, overall, it works really, really well. But what we're going to do is we're going to focus at some things that are specifically important to me. And I'm going to compare it a little bit to the GoPro Hero 8 and do a few comparisons. But I'll even start with a summary so those of you who are busy can be on your way already. The GoPro Hero 9 is a great all-round upgrade over the GoPro Hero 8. However, actual differences in image and photography quality are minimal at best and probably not actually noticeable to most people. But there are some big differences that might matter to some people. So let's get a little bit more specific, and I've got a few comparisons with the GoPro Hero 8. Okay, so we're going to start with a general side-by-side just showing the Hero 8 and the GoPro Hero 9 Black, and this is using my most commonly used settings, which is 30 frames per second, super view. This is both cameras set to 4K, 30 frames per second, super view. This is the setting I would normally use. This is going to be a little bit of a test comparison of the audio, the image quality, and how they handle exposure as I rotate my round, as I rotate my back around into the sun. Neither of them have got wind shields on, and they're both set to automatic for wind. So it'll be interesting to see how the audio compares between these two. Yeah, so not actually that much difference in these two. Now I would argue that with the right color grade and the right tweaking, you couldn't tell. You really couldn't. I mean, you could zoom in and pixel peek, but no one does that in a real video. So side by side, they're virtually identical in terms of image and video quality, at least in good conditions outdoors. Now I did do a low light test which showed that the Hero 9 maybe slightly has the edge, but again, I think you'd be hard pressed for anyone to tell the difference. But what about photo quality? Oh, and I haven't forgotten 5K will come to that, but what about photo quality? What about that 20 megapixels versus the 12 that's on the 8? Does that actually make a difference? Let's have a look. So here's a photograph, nicely zoomed out. Okay, let's zoom in and see if there's actually more detail. Not really. You'd have thought that 20 megapixels would have made a big difference, but when you zoom in to that kind of extent, I'm just not seeing a massive benefit there. But what about 5K then? That extra resolution that you get with the Hero 9, does that make a difference? Well, I found in tests that yeah, it does make a difference when you zoom away in. But it's not much of a difference. It's really, really not. There's minimal benefit. So yeah, when it comes to image quality, the improvements are absolutely minimal. Now when it comes to stabilization, it's as good as always with a few extra options now, but again, the differences are minimal. GoPros have had good stabilization since the Hero 7, so 2 generations later, it's still good for most people. Okay, so the actual image quality differences are minimal, and especially by the time you get on YouTube and YouTube has minced it with its compression, there's absolutely minimal benefit to upgrading for image quality reasons alone. So what is actually different with the GoPro Hero 9 versus the Hero 8 that might actually be worth upgrading for? And the first thing is Timewarp. I love the fact there is now a real-time button in Timewarp that has audio. The other thing is that you now get the horizon leveling with the Timewarp, which means that if you're running on unstable ground and you're wobbling a bit, your video stays much more level. Battery life in the Hero 9 is genuinely improved, up to 30% greater battery life, and I found in practice that I'm able to now get like a full 2 to 3 hour run out of this. Now I don't film continuously, I switch it on and off, but previously I would have had to bring 2 batteries with me, and usually I would have used like 1 1/4 batteries. Now I just need 1 battery for the GoPro Hero 9. There's a new hindsight feature, which means if you activate it, which means when you activate it, as long as it's on, it's constantly recording, and then when you hit record, it'll then record like the previous number of seconds. That's a nice feature. I haven't used it yet, but it might be important for some people. The replaceable lens is back. The GoPro Hero 8 completely sealed front lens unit. This is not removable. People were concerned about that because you scratch this, the whole thing needs to go back. With the GoPro Hero 9, this now comes off. You just twist it a certain way, that will come off, and you can replace the lens protector. You can put ND filters and other things like that. That's quite significant, again, for some people. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the front screen, which I was so cynical about the front screen. I said I'll never use it, but I have to confess, I have actually been using the front screen. And specifically, I find it useful when I'm like holding it at arm's length and I'm trying to do like a full body shot. Previously, when I was doing that, I was just guessing where I might be in frame, and now I can actually see myself. So I have to confess, the front screen has actually been useful. Okay, so that's the good stuff. Now, what about the bad? Because there are a few things with the Hero 9 that I'm not completely thrilled about. And the first off is responsiveness of the screen. The screen is not as responsive as the Hero 8, which is just a little bit frustrating. I'm hoping it's something they'll fix in firmware, but what I'm finding for now is that I kind of have to just put more pressure on. Like, it's not like operating a phone screen where it's like a simple tap. You have to like press and put pressure and move, and then it works okay. But I'd kind of hoped it would have been much more like operating a mobile phone screen, because that's something they'd said that was going to improve. And then the other downside with the Hero 9, which has been the downside of all GoPros since the beginning of time, and every action camera I've ever owned, it still crashes from time to time. It'll freeze, you have to pop open the door, yank out the battery, and then put it all back in again. But that's about it. Those two things, screen responsiveness and occasional crashes, are really only the two downsides I found with the Hero 9. So if you have the Hero 8, should you upgrade? Well, I will say that if you're upgrading for image quality, don't do it. I do think there is an increase. I do think the video quality has some kind of quality about it which feels better. It's hard to put my finger on what it is, but I don't know if how many people are actually going to notice it. You can let me know if you noticed it in my video. Now, on the other hand, if you want a front screen, if you want longer battery life, if you want that time warp with audio, if those things are important to you, by all means upgrade. They made it worthwhile for me, but again, if you're just upgrading for the quality of the video or the stabilization, stick with the Hero 8, or maybe wait and see what's coming with the Hero 10. Personally, what I would love to see with the next generation, and I think actually they've made this bigger because it means they can now fit in a bigger sensor in the future. So here's my prediction right now. The GoPro Hero 10, there'll be two versions. There'll be a standard version and there'll be a 1-inch sensor version. I'm calling it now. We'll see what happens. Okay, so that's my video. If you want to see more videos about GoPro Hero 9, specifically, I'm going to cover how to get the best audio quality out of this possible, plus my little hack to drastically improve the audio quality in Wind. I'm going to cover the media mod as well, and whether or not it makes a big difference in audio, or whether it's useful to buy in general. I'm going to cover the best settings to use to get the best video quality, as well as how to edit that and get the best video and best color quality out of it. I might even release a GoPro LUT pack for you to get the most out of your GoPro footage. And when the Max Lens mod come out, I'm going to get it and test it too. And there'll probably be other videos out about the GoPro, so if you're interested in any of those, or any running, hiking, blah 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 video, blah blah blah, just go and look in the channel and you can see what's on here. If there's anything that interests you, please subscribe. Bye bye.